Hello everyone, welcome to my series on A2019 programming, and today we are going to discuss Excel as a database. Now Excel as a workbook, we have seen different types of commands that you can perform. We have seen commands on the sheet level, commands on the workbook level, commands on the cell level, but Excel sheet can be also treated as a database. Now when treated as a database, let me just open a sample Excel sheet for you. Now a sheet like this, the sheet 1 becomes the database table name, and each of these fields become the DB fields, and you can easily write a query on these fields. To do that, we need a certain provider to be installed, so we need the Microsoft ACE OLEDB provider to be installed on the system for this to work, and we need to mention the data source and the properties. So we are going to use this connection string, and we are going to query data out of this Excel sheet and see the challenges that we face. Okay, so let's start. Let's start by creating a simple database connect statement, and the connection mode we say default, so it gives the option of entering the connection string. Copy this, paste it over here. I think I need to change the file name. The file name is employee.xlsx and it is under the folder A2019 programming, so this path needs to be present in the data source, so this file name should be changed to employee.xlsx. Let me just copy and paste it again. Save it. So that's our connect statement. Now once we connect it, we need to read data out of that using a, let's say, select query. Maybe I'll just do a read from, and we'll just put a simple select statement saying select star from sheet 1, that's the sheet name, and we put a dollar next to it, that's the convention. But since dollar is a kind of a prefix for a variable in A2019, so if we put the raw command right here, we need to put $2. So the normal syntax for a select query when you are querying an Excel sheet as a table is this, with just $1, not 2. But since in A2019 dollar is a prefix for variables, while writing the query over here, we need to escape this dollar prefix, hence we put $2. Okay, so coming back to our query, so we are just doing a select star from sheet 1, and this is optional, this is optional. We export the data to a CSV file. Now the CSV file we choose as output.csv in the same location. Select desktop file, output.csv, and we export the data with header and we overwrite the existing file. Let's save it. Okay, and once it is done, we disconnect our session. Let's run this code and see what happens. Let me just close the Excel which is already open. Okay, so it's run successfully. Let me just open Notepad++, where I've already opened the file output.csv. Now file is getting reloaded, and this is our file. So you can ignore the spaces in the header, I'll take care of that, but basically the data has come. So these are the data. Now we can easily write a where condition. We can also write joins normal to any other select query. Let me just try that. Go back to our select statement, and let's say select star from sheet 1, where, let's see the fields that we have. Okay, so where employee ID is, let's say, EMP7. Okay, the field name is EMP_ID. The field name is EMP7. We are putting a single quotation here for string. Let's run this and see if it works as expected. Okay, and it's run successfully. Let's go back to our file and reload this file, and we see that along with the header we just have one more record for EMP7. So basically the normal select query syntaxes for where clause, for join clauses, they work the same way as any other select query. In this case, let's see the challenges that we may face. So what we are going to do here is, right now the entire sheet, if you see the connection string, let's go back to a connection string. If you see that connection string, it says header equal to yes. So by default, Excel takes the header and then it picks up the records, which are basically the output of the select query. Now, in this case, when we are querying an Excel sheet, we didn't define the data type anywhere. Now, for a database table like for SQL Server or Oracle, the data type is mentioned, the defined, right, in the table design. But in this case, Excel doesn't know the data type. So it decides the data type on its own depending on the number of records it faces, it encounters. So for example, this column, when queried, Excel automatically treats this column as a numeric column. But for this column, it's automatically treated as a string column. So what happens if we put a string, let's say instead of this 101, I put a string value over here, test 101. What happens then? Let me just save it, close this, go back to our query and select star from sheet 1. Our connection string remains same, everything remains same. Let's run this. Okay, reload the file and we see that the test 101 value is missing. So how did that happen? When Excel queried the database, when the driver queried the Excel sheet as database table, it assumed that this is a numeric field. The moment it encountered a string field that was not compatible with the data type it had assumed. So this came as blank. How to avoid this scenario? Okay, let's try something called IMEX equal to 1. Now if you search for this kind of issues, they will say that you need to suffix it with IMEX equal to 1, which tells the provider to treat the entire sheet as text. Let's see if it's true. Run the query again. Close this, go back to our output file and reload this, and it still doesn't come. So basically, Excel is stuck on its assumption that as long as there are numerics in this field, it won't basically pick up or display a string character within that numeric field. So what we need to do here is we have to make a simple tweak over here. We have to mention that header is no. So what happens when header is no? So this entire data becomes our data record. Nothing is header as of now. Everything is data. So Excel gets a combination of string and numeric field, and it by default assumes the entire data to be string. Let's go back to our Excel sheet to understand this better. So earlier, this department ID was a header, and we had only these data records. So Excel considers this column as a numeric column because it has so many numeric data records. So the test 101 gets kind of missed out or blanked out. But now we are saying that there is no header record. Everything is data. So with this, we start with the string data and then come back to numeric, and then at the end there is a string data. So now Excel gets a combination of string and numeric at the very beginning. So it's not able to decide that it's a numeric field, it goes with string. Let's see how that works. We save this and close this. Go back to our code. And did we make the change here? Okay, we need to make the change here as well. Header equal to no. And we keep the IMEX equal to 1. We save it and run this. Okay, now just reload this and we see that by default Excel assumes 3 field names, F1, F2 and F3. Now these are our headers and this is the data record. So our data starting from 101 all the way to test 101 comes properly because the header also is part of the data record and header is a string. So Excel treats the entire value as a string. So basically Excel decides the data type of the value based on the initial set of value that it reads. Maybe 8 or 10 records, and then it decides that this particular column should be either string or data numeric, something like that. So in this case, since we did not give a header, the provider gives 3 headers to us, F1, F2, F3. So now if we want to put a where condition in this case, so let's say in this case where we have given no headers, if we need to put a where condition, we have to do it like this, where F1 equal to EMP7. Run this. Reload the output, and this is our output. So basically F1, F2, F3 is our new header record. Okay, so we have seen one challenge. Let's see what other challenges we can face. Okay, so now let's assume that we add one more record to our Excel source data. Let's say EMP10, and the name is employee 10, and we add a large number over here. Let's say a number with 11 digits, and we save the file and close the file. Our query is back to select star, and our connection string says header is no and IMEX equal to 1 to bring out the text fields. Okay, let's run this again. Go back to our file and load it, and we see that this is the outcome of the query. Now if you see the data that is here, which is 1 2 3 4, all the 11 characters have come properly. Let's close this, or let's go back to our Excel sheet and increase it to 13 digits. Let's say this is 11th, 12th, and then 13th. Let's try this. So when you increase it to 13 digits, or let's say a certain limit, we see that the exponential notation that comes along with the number. So we don't get the number in the plain form, we get it in this form, which actually we don't want. So how do we handle this scenario? What we need to do now is, there are actually multiple ways of handling this. So the one way is to select the entire set of data in the column, and then right click, format cells, and select text. Save the file and close the file. Now if we run the query, the same query, we see that all the 13 digits have come properly. Now there's one more way to do this, is to use a string formula. So let's say we don't want to disturb that field. We don't want to select the entire column, set the format as character and all those things, right? So in this case what we can do is we can create a temporary column over here, and let's say we put a equal sign, and we say you can just use any string function. Let's say concat, and then select this. Don't select anything else, just. So what we are doing basically is, even if this is a numeric field, we are still converting it to a character. So let's go back and change our set to numeric, So we are now forcefully changing this back to numeric number, no decimals, and same for this also. So we'll just do a format paint over here, and this becomes numeric. Now we see that even though this is numeric, was it not changed? Okay. Even though this is numeric, this new field is completely text format because it is left aligned. All the numerics are right aligned, right? Now if we save the file, close the file, run the query, and we see that the output is proper. So even if the numeric or string conversions are causing problem, what we can do is we can take the desired column, create a computed column with a formula, and keep that column as our point of reference. Since the column is entirely text, the numbers come properly. Okay, let's go back to our code and see what are the other challenges possible. Okay, so let's try some joins now. Let's go back to our Excel sheet, open the sheet, and add one more sheet over here. And let's say these are employee details, and we have department details in the second sheet. I'll just delete this records from here. Those are just for the purpose of understanding. Okay, and I'll also delete this temp. Okay, let's say we have a department ID column over here, and we have department name over here, and let's just 102, 103, 101, let's just copy the 3 departments over here, and let's just put a name to these departments. Department 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so now we have 2 tables, one is sheet 1, one is sheet 2. So we have employee ID name and department ID over here, and here we have department ID and department name. So let's just select the employee name and department name from the 2 tables where department ID becomes the key. So how do we do this using a join? The simplest join is select a dot employee name, b dot department name. Was it department name or what was the field name? DEPT name. Okay, so let's just correct this. DEPT name from the table name is sheet $1. So in case of A2019 we have to put $2. Sheet $1 inner join, I'm sorry, sheet 1 as A, inner join sheet 2 as B on, what's the key field? A dot department ID equal to B dot department ID. Let's check the field names properly. Yep, it's DPT underscore ID, DPT underscore ID, and that's what we have given in the query as well. Okay, so this is our join query. Let's just try this query. Copy the query and put that in the select statement, and we'll just save and close the file and run the code. Okay, it says no value given for one or more required parameters. Okay, so why did this error come? Now we have given a condition saying A department ID equal to B department ID, but if you remember, we already changed our provider. We changed our connection string. We mentioned that there is no header, so it's not able to find the department ID. So let's just delete this and go back to our original connection string setting, which says header yes, and now run this. And it's completed. Let's go back to the output file, reload the file, and now you can see that all the employee names and the department names have come up. Okay, now what happens if there are more than one join? Let's go back to our code. Actually, let's go back to our Excel sheet. So this is the employee detail, this is the department detail. Let's say we have one more sheet 3 which contains which employees are permanent and which are temporary. So we have employee ID over here, and let's say we have a field called temp. Employee ID, we can just copy all the employee IDs from this and put them here, and this field can just say yes or no. Okay, so now we have three tables. This contains employee details, this has some departments, and this contains which employees are temporary, yes or no, basically which are temporary employees and which are permanent employees. Now let's go back to our query. So in this case we are going to select all the employee records where of course the department ID needs to match. Along with that, we need one more inner join to sheet 3 as C on A dot employee ID should match with C dot employee ID, and C dot temp should be, let's say we need only permanent employees, so this should be no. So temp no means it's a permanent employee. So this is our query. So normally this is the syntax of any inner join. Let's see if this works. Put that in a single line and copy this, delete the previous one, paste it, and just run it. Okay, we need to close our file. Okay, so here we see an error saying syntax error, missing operator in query expression, and this gives the join section of the query. So this is getting a syntax error in the join section. So what is that error? So normally for any kind of provider, the normal query is what we have written here. We have two inner joins, one after the other. There is absolutely no error. But in case of ACE provider, what we need to do is we need to put additional parentheses for additional inner join queries. So since we have three queries, so two inner join queries and three tables over here, so our first parenthesis starts at the beginning of the first table and it ends right here. And then this is our second inner join. So this is the syntax. What happens if we have one more inner join? So let's say I just copy this and paste it again. So let's say I have a sheet 4 over here. I'm just assuming this. I have a sheet 4 over here and there are total 3 inner joins. In that case we have to put one more bracket over here and that will end right here. So that's the syntax of multiple inner joins. Okay, now let's try this. Copy this, keep some space at the end so that the words don't join together. Just copy that entire thing, paste it, and run this. Okay, it says join expression not supported. Let's go back to our query. Okay, so I realized the mistake over here. So we need to remove this and. So inner join stops at the on condition, and then this C temp equal to no will be part of a where clause. And when we run this, let's go back, delete this, paste and run. And this runs fine. So if we reload this file, we see that we have only 3 departments and 3 employee names, 2, 6 and 8. If we go back to our Excel sheet, we see that only 2 and 6 and 8 are the ones where temp is no. Rest all the employees are temporary employees. So this is how we use Excel as a database in A2019 with this provider. Please try it out different scenarios. You can choose to add multiple tables, maybe 5 or 6 tables as part of your inner join. If you face any issues or if you want to share some new findings, please drop a message in the comment section. Thank you so much.